soon as it says YouTube is streaming. Because for some reason it takes a bit longer than Twitch. Still says sending data. Oh, there we go. Hello everyone and welcome back to Tome Raider. I'm Ollie Johnson, I'm here with Dan. How you doing, Dan?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. And today we read the first, well, I don't know about the first 4 stories. There's been some dispute about the order and we'd already done one of them. We read 4 stories of His Last Bow by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. The War Service of Sherlock Holmes is a subtitle that this book has.
Yes, because the Adventure of the Cardboard Box uh, was originally in the second collection, or that was when
God,
it
I
was
forgot
released.
to change the text above the fire. Sorry, keep talking. I'm just gonna fix that.
And what's the message by KAF or Kate? Yeah, because the Adventure of the Cardboard Box was released in '93, and the first of this collection was in '07. So there was a 14-year gap, but it was released with this because it was considered too horrible for the morals at the time. It was just sort of like that was because there was adultery in it, not because of like brutal murder, as you know is in Sherlock Holmes stories. There are brutal murders,
Although the
or
cardboard
maybe
box was a
not.
particularly brutal one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. There is that, and then the PDF I used to read for it was saying that a completely different story was in place as to every other source we were able to find on the subject.
yeah.
Which was, it said that an adventure called The Devil's Foot was, in fact, one of the first 4 stories.
We'll be getting to that
But yeah,
in
we'll
like...
have left that till next week because neither of us had actually gone through it before this one.
Well, no, next week
So
is that... Well, next week is we're away. The week after that, it's
yeah,
Animorphs. So in 3 weeks, we'll
yeah,
get to the Devil's Foot.
yeah. The next time we are in Sherlock Holmes stories,
Just gonna check the spelling on this one.
you can probably skip the adventure. You could do Sherlock Holmes, the adventure, colon, and then just do Wisteria Lodge, the Red Circle, and the rest of them. I know probably not the best time to say that at this point where you've nearly written them all.
Yeah.
Especially as one of them is the Bruce Parrington plan.
Bruce. I think I got that right. Yeah, and... Okay. Alright, I have now corrected this extremely basic thing that I'd never got wrong before. I must be tired or something. Okay, so the adventure of Wisteria Lodge we started with. And this was quite a long one. It's basically 2 of them in length.
Yeah, well, in audiobook length, it wasn't the longest one of this week, or at least in my
Really?
one. Even though it's split into 2, it was still shorter than the Bruce Barrington lands.
Yeah, I
But
do
it was,
remember thinking that one went quite long.
yeah, but this one for some reason is split up into 2 parts, which is what was it? crisis. Let's see, where did I have it up here? The singular experience of Mr. John Scott Eccles and the Tiger of Pedro. Oh, but yeah, this one takes. We start once again at 221B Baker Street, but this one is a little earlier than some of the more recent stories, as this is set in 1892, the adventure of the Wisteria Lodge,
Yes.
or of Wisteria Lodge.
And it starts with Holmes waxing linguistics about the word grotesque, as I recall.
Yes, because he has received a telegram and saying, "Have just had the most incredible and grotesque experience. May I consult you, Scott Eccles, Post Office, Charing Cross." I said, "Watson does wonder for a moment if man or woman sent this," and Sherlock, obviously a man. A woman would have just come rather than pay money for this. And we've seen before he's waxed lyrically about this. He's written a reply and sent it off. And by the time they finished talking about he has arrived. So it's just sort of like he might as well have just come over anyway and saved himself the money. Because evidently he is actually just waiting at the bottom of the stairs, it feels like, with the amount of time that passes and them talking and short going, here's our man now, as he so often does.
Yes.
As, Sherlock does moan in at least two of these that London has gotten boring because the criminals have gotten boring and less inventive and exciting. Which I think is Arthur Conan Doyle going, "I hate writing these. I am so bored."
Let's be fair, he's been recycling ideas for a bit now. He ran out of ideas around the time he originally killed him off.
Yeah, as will sort of become apparent in the first two adventures. Like we have both commented already, like when sorting out technical stuff, that they are surprisingly similar in some areas.
Yeah.
Yes, but what we learn from Mr. John Scott Eccles is the police are already looking for him and indeed have been following him on the trains since the train station, and B, we get an insight into sort of Victorian country, Victorian friendship and social lives. It's just sort of like we learn that John Scott Eccles had made an acquaintance at another friend's house of a Spanish gentleman, he assumed, and had been invited to stay at his house in the country, and he just sort of like couldn't find a way to wiggle out of it, so he attended a Mr. Garcia's house.
Yeah. He arrived at this house only to feel incredibly unwelcome. Well,
yeah, and
it was a subpar dinner. It is established. He said the meal was neither well cooked, well presented, nor well cooked, or something. Oh, what does he say? Let's see. I drove to the place about 2 miles on the south side of Astor. The house was a fair-sized one. Blah, 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 blah. He opened the door himself, however, and greeted me with a great show of cordiality. I was handed over to the manservant. Our dinner was a tete-a-tete, and though my host did his best to be entertaining, his thoughts seemed to continually wander, and he talked so vaguely and wildly that I could hardly understand him. He continually drummed his fingers on the table, gnawed his nails, and gave other signs of nervous impatience. The dinner itself was neither well served nor well cooked, and the gloomy presence of the taciturn servant did not help enliven us. I can assure you many times in the course of this evening I wished that I could invent some excuse which would take me back to Lee.
Yeah,
so basically,
time.
Worst nightmare of anyone with any kind of social anxiety, an awkward dinner.
Yeah. Yeah. He's telling this story to Sherlock Watson and two police officers. I believe this one is
Gregson.
Gregson. Rather, yeah,
Yeah.
this one is Gregson rather than Lestrade.
And I think Gregson
Uh,
starts to sort of try and develop some kind of a rivalry with Holmes.
yeah. As is noticeable in several of these, in a couple of these stories. In fact, I've heard this one in particular is uh, that the police are getting shown in a much better light, and Sherlock seems to have a better respect for them. Because there was another detective who was not of Scotland Yard who appears later, who actually catches Sherlock off guard in a couple of times.
Ah.
Actually, I believe he's here with Gregson now. I just can't remember his name offhand.
Oh.
Uh, quickly checks text.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, this man is sort of upset in this, and it's the first time we encounter that I can remember encountering the phrase of you have not taken care of your toilet, or to Sherlock going, I'm not particularly bothered of usually bother with my toilet, and in this context it means like your morning ablutions, shaving, combing hair, brushing of teeth, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's just hilarious to hear them discuss that they've not looked after their toilet. It's just sort of like, how do you know? Indoor plumbing was not massive at this point.
How could you
I
possibly
can,
know that, Holmes? Well, you see, there is a skid mark down your left ankle.
how do you know I'm not taking good care of your toilet? Because we are currently ankle deep in sewage from your basin.
Mm.
Fair point. Fair point.
uh,
But the experience that really put him out is that he struggled to sleep, and then his host appears and says, "Sorry, did you ring just then?" And it's just no, I did not. It was just I do apologise. Sorry for waking you so late. It is 1 in the morning after all. And then leaves, and then he'd asked to be awoken at 8 o'clock in the following morning by the servants, and he wakes naturally to find that it is nearly 9. And he pulls upon the bell cord repeatedly to call servants so he can get some hot water, and no one answers. So he goes out and enters his host's bedroom as he was shown the night before, and there's no host there.
in fact,
So
there's
he
no
goes through
sign
the
the
house.
bed's been slept in.
Yeah, yeah. He goes through the house and sort of like tries to find any of the staff yelling and looking, and from what he can tell is they've basically jumped ship, abandoned him there, and seem to have taken all personal possessions for the most part. So this is what sent him into an absolute tizzy. That is getting him into finding Sherlock, because he doesn't come immediately, and Holmes commented on this earlier, because he was checking the rental agency to see whether that it was, because his assumption was it was a plot to stick him with the rent of Wisteria Lodge. And it's just like, no, the rent is paid up. There's still some period of rent covered. That we thank you for the warning on someone trying to stiff us on rent, but they have actually paid up and they are ahead.
Ah.
And,
So
um,
but then there's no one in the house. So
yeah, and this is the thing that has sent him to Sherlock, because it's just sort of like, is this some form of practical joke? What is this? I'm completely flummoxed. And we then learn from the two police officers, Gregson and Baines, or
Baines.
Baynes. Yeah,
Yes.
that the reason why they are after Scott Eccles is because Mr. Garcia has been found dead in the countryside nearby. and how
Quite
they were able to
gruesomely, as
identify him.
like, didn't he sustain a nasty head wound or something? Or am I thinking of a
Yeah,
different one?
it's no, there's sort of head wounds. Head wounds. They're not entirely sure sort of what has happened to him, but it's looking like foul play, and they're wanting to talk to Mr. Scott Eccles because the only way they were able to identify the gentleman is the fact that he had a letter on him in his pocket at the time, which uh, that's what gave them his name and said that Scott Eccles would be staying at his house that evening. So they were wanting to know what he knew of the situation. And of course, as they are British, and this is clearly a gentleman of some standing, despite not looking after his toilet. I'm going to
Yeah.
have great fun with that phrase this week. I feel he is considered innocent. There's like no assumption that he is responsible for this, because there's also no sign that Mr. Garcia has been burgled or anything. But Inspector Baines has noted that there are a few unusual things that are still being left at the house. And would Sherlock like to come and examine them? And this was after the singular question the detective seemed to ask Scott Eccles is, do you remember your host receiving a note and what became of it? Yes, he did receive a note. He looked at it, got annoyed, and threw it in the fire. And yeah, and turned out
Gregson
that
um, points out that he overshot the throw, and it actually ended up behind the fire.
yeah, because the fire would be in a grate, so it would
Oh,
be
here it
lifted
is. It
above
said
the surface and
it.
not
It
go
was a
to the
dog
back.
grate, Mr. Holmes, and he overpitched it. I picked this out unburned from the back of it.
Yeah, yeah. Everyone is sort of everyone that Scott Eccles has been staying with has been described as foreign in one form or another. Uh, um, can't remember exactly for which characters which. Apart from the one that's see, there's one character who will be appear that I can't remember exactly the words they used to describe it. I'm just seeing if I can find it. It was described. Uh, da, 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 Right, but it's a mixed race man of uh, African and European descent. Can't remember the phrase they used. Is not the phrase in itself is not racist, but a racist term at the time or nowadays. But it does sort of stand out a bit, especially with some of the things that are attributed to him later on. And it's just sort of like, oh,
Yeah.
great.
I
Yeah.
mean, I know it's not technically a slur. I still don't want to say it.
Yeah, and yeah, there is some sort of attributing of various uh, facts that are definitely at the end of the book
Yeah.
or at the end of the story.
There
But
is there is some casual racial insensitivity in.
and also religious insensitivity as well.
Oh yes, yes, that too. We
But
can't forget
but
that.
those two are sort of tied together as are like the string that make a bow. They
Yeah.
are not really separate. You can't really separate the two at this point. The insensitivity towards the race, in part, comes from the insensitivity towards the
Yeah.
faith. And
So,
yeah, Holmes wanders for a bit as to with Watson as to what is going on before they make their way to the lodge. And they come to the conclusion, because the time of death doesn't meet up with the story of Scott Eccles, because it rained during the night, but it rained before 1 o'clock, and he must have been out before that, because the grass under him is dry, essentially, whereas the grass around him is wet. But Scott Eccles is sure that his host came in and disturbed him at 1 o'clock. And Holmes concludes that this was an alibi being set up, and that it wasn't the servants moving against their master, because why would they do that on the one day where he's not essentially at their mercy all on his own? And so it is a plot that the servants have worked with the master that has gone wrong, and a sort of fail-safe signal has been achieved, probably by the master not returning on time, and everyone has run, and Scott Eccles was meant to provide an alibi. He sends off a telegram, and yeah.
Oh, never mind. I'll wait till the end of the story. I just remembered something I read in a Discworld book that was basically a rant about Sherlock Holmes, and got a bit excited. I'll do it between stories.
Yeah.
I read Feet of Clay the other week.
Yeah. But before they leave, Sherlock gets a reply for his telegram, which is a list of names and addresses, which is Lord Harringby, the Digley, Sir George, a list of exalted people and the halls they're staying in. And we learn that he sent out this note to try and work out what houses would be big enough to fit the description in the letter that was recovered from the grate, which featured the phrase green and white like our flag, and seventh door on the left, second floor. So it's just sort of like, well, we need to know what houses in the nearby area are actually big enough to have 7 doors on the left on the second floor, because obviously there's some mischief going on in that one.
So
and yeah, so
a question I ask
Sherlock,
is, why would they have just disappeared? But it's like,
yeah,
and they rule out they explicitly rule out that it was some kind of prank or joke, which I find funny.
Yeah, well, I believe because the host was found dead is why they ruled it out more than it.
But surely that should go without saying. It's like, you must admit, my dear Watson, that the idea of a joke is impossible. There were grave events afoot.
Yeah, a man has died, for goodness sake, Watson. This is no laughing matter.
I never said it was.
Yeah,
it's suspicious that he brought up ruling out a joke unprovoked, is all I'm saying.
I get the feeling that was an editor was reading it and still considered it a possibility, or Arthur Conan Doyle was just getting frustrated that some of his readers weren't getting his more subtle hints of, I don't want to be doing this, so I'm going to treat you as idiots, and have Holmes treat Watson as an idiot. But that ends the first part of the story, and we go to the Tiger of San Pedro. Not an actual tiger, unfortunately.
No, it's a metaphorical tiger.
Yes. Yes. But they make their way to the eponymous Wisteria Lodge, and Baines has had a constable keeping an eye on the house for the amount of time it takes them to actually get there, and he's found in a bit of a state. He's actually scared by their arrival, because this mixed race man has put in an appearance at the window, and he was terrified. Right, and Baines chastises him and says, "Well, if the devil himself should turn up, you should be ready to arrest him."
I remember that. That was one of the lines that stuck out to me. It's like, if I didn't know you for a good man,
this would be a black mark against you. And it's just like, I thought the devil was here. Well, then you should have arrested him. They are British policemen, god damn it! At this point, Scott Eccles has been ruled out as the killer, and the police have taken him in for a statement, but that is it. I would say that is too premature on this, but why would you then search out Sherlock Holmes to investigate a murder you've committed? But I do believe Sherlock says in the previous story, when that very point is brought up, that two people have done that in stories we have not seen. In two people who were the murderer brought the story up to see if they could. I believe the basic idea was: can Sherlock follow the trail of breadcrumbs I have left to lead to someone else, not to me? The answer is no. He figured out that trail of breadcrumbs was wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, but yeah. Now, Baines had said that there were some queer or strange things going on in that had been seen in the house or found in the house after they left, and he it owes them to it, which includes what they assume at first is, or I think the line is, if I didn't know any better, I'd say it was a mummified Negro baby.
Oh yeah, that was the
yeah, that
the racial insensitivity.
well, there's a bit. That's a bit. That is part of it. Yeah. Then
I think that was probably the most egregious bit.
Yeah, well, this scene and then the bit at the end with a certain line of as well. But the remains of a bird that has seemingly been torn apart, and a basin of blood, ash, and bits of bone under the sink. And yeah, they talk about these bits for a moment and then sort of brush aside. And for the most part, they are actually irrelevant to the case. I genuinely feel that these details were added to be a bit sensational for the story, rather than like it was actually added really anything to the overall mystery, apart from as a red herring. Because they spend a bit of time like after this, and then Holmes and Watson stay near Wisteria Lodge for a few days. Holmes going out on the days, and Watson just sort of staying about, and Holmes sort of makes friends with the local gossips, as he is wont to do. Finds goes around the countryside looking at plants, apparently, and takes a quick trip back to London to look in the British Museum, and then comes back. And a few days later, there's a great sort of and the first of the moments where the detective takes Holmes by surprise is there's news in the paper that an arrest has been made on the murder of Garcia. And it is the mixed-race man that was spotted by the policeman earlier, who does not have flattering descriptions, described as beast-like and barely able to make a language beyond grunts.
Oh, Jesus
and
Christ.
Yeah, it's...
Yeah. I mean, I read the same story you did, but it's still surprising.
Yeah, it's not... This one is definitely one of the worst, where the casual prejudices at the time really stick out. Because
this story contains the line, "A white cock," said he. "Most interesting. It is really a very curious case. I will not elaborate."
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, meaning cockerel, meaning rooster.
Yeah.
But also, it's funny to look at on the page.
Yeah, this This story, The Sign of the Four, couple of the other early ones, and are definitely some of the most egregious for casual racism.
Yeah.
Um,
Are you trying to
the Adventure
dispel
of the Yellow
the
Face.
tension there with plurality? Purility.
Yeah, yeah. The Adventure of the Yellow Face, but definitely bucks the trend on that one because that had because the yellow face in question is a poorly painted mask, and it had someone accept his wife's child from a former marriage who is mixed race without any question. It's just sort of like, oh, that's a refreshingly enlightened view of that.
And then we get to this one.
And then we get this one, and there is still more that is
Yeah.
that. And Sherlock immediately, sort of after Watson shows in the paper, gets Watson to join him to go and bother Detective Baines. Because Sherlock is like, you're on the trace of the wrong man. I have been following things. And Baines sort of brushes Sherlock aside and goes, if you have, and repeats almost a line back to Sherlock, which is my answers and conclusions are at your disposal if you should so need them, which is a line Sherlock said earlier. And it's revealed later that he's not just being sort of snarky in the way that Lestrade has been a couple of times.
Yeah.
And it's sort of revealed later that he's actually on Sherlock's level in this case. But Sherlock then explains a bit to what he's been doing with Watson. He has been checking out the local houses nearby. And he has found one in which he has made contact with a former groundskeeper who used to work there before that, which he thinks is the source of where Garcia was going in the night, and is also inhabited by foreigners as well, he says. So two groups of foreigners going on this, because heaven forbid an Englishman be guilty of murder in the countryside. Baskerville. Yeah. Yeah. But he's got the groundkeeper is now in Sherlock's employ and is keeping an eye on these people, and he theorizes that they're going to have to break in for a moment. But in the end, they don't have to, because the groundskeeper comes to them with a woman who is shows to be in the throes of opium, as it were. Sherlock well recognizing that, and they immediately go, right, she's in the throes of opium. Coffee, get me a bucket of coffee.
Which again, great binge. They drank opium like it was alcohol at the time.
Yeah.
And they drank alcohol like it was water. They didn't really drink water, it wasn't reliably clean.
There's a bit of a myth to that, but in the 60s, certainly it wasn't reliably as clean because, well, sewage wasn't as reliably separated.
No, I must be thinking of a bit further back.
Yeah, well, there is still sort of like a lot of the they drank beer and wine instead of water because water wasn't reliably clean is sort of a myth that the Victorians are in part responsible for. Because if there's anything about the Middle Ages you learn that turns out to be a myth, it is probably the Victorians' fault as to why you thought it was real. Because they liked rewriting history.
Yeah.
Like, the idea of knights wearing shining armor when they go into battle is the Victorians' fault. Because a lot of armor used to be painted, unless it was like rings. Because that's quite hard to paint. In part because it protected against wear and tear.
Yeah.
Like it protected against rust and corrosion. And also, pardon me, keeping it polished was a hell of a lot of effort.
Well, it would be. There's a lot of moving parts there.
Yeah, and also like having painted pattern in your colors would also make it easier to tell who you were on the battlefield.
Yeah, identify friend
Uh,
from foe as and such.
Yeah, as opposed to the Japanese tradition, which has continued on into sort of uh into animes, and a lot of like, why don't people attack during the transformation sequence? It's because who you killed and captured on the battlefield would increase your rating and like the respect you had. So you needed to sit through them in a one-on-one duel, going through all their titles, so you could know who you'd actually killed. So that's why in anime people don't attack during when they're giving long monologues during a transformation sequence, because it's the equivalent of learning who's the important person you're trying to murder to make yourself more important. That is an aside upon an aside. We have achieved it in the first story.
A sideception.
Take that off of the bingo card.
Yeah. Oh well.
There isn't actually a bingo card.
Perhaps there should be a bingo card.
We will see. But yes, this woman turns out to have been the governess who was looking after the children of the man. Oh, I've forgotten what his actual name
Oh,
is.
what was it? Um,
Uh,
not Ernesto. Where am I getting Ernesto from?
yeah,
Mr. Garcia.
Don Juan. No, Garcia
Garcia.
is the man who is dead. Garcia is the man who is dead, who she was working with, not working for.
Oh, right.
Or because it's the man they want. Henderson is the name he goes by in England. Don Juan Murillo.
Oh, Murillo, I
Yeah,
think it's pronounced in
yeah, but
Don Juan
essentially
Murillo,
he is. Yeah, Murillo.
the
Um,
titular tiger of what was it?
San Pedro.
San Pedro.
Yeah. The long and short of it is he was a dictator in a South American country, colony, sort of thing, who was like all sort of governor militants in colonies, an absolute bastard.
Oh yeah,
There's,
of
yeah,
course.
if you want to sort of get an idea on how badly some of these figures are remembered, ask someone from the Congo about King Leopold. There is a appreciable drop in their country's population when he was in charge and farming rubber on there. But he was a bastard who would just have people murdered if they showed signs of being a potential threat to him, and treated the country like his own private fiefdom.
The
Now, I
woman in
might talk
question was
more
the
the character in this book.
yeah,
I'm talking about.
right.
Yeah, but
The woman in question was the widow of one such person who was seen as a threat and was promptly called away and killed.
yeah, because she is an English woman. She fell in love with an ambassador at the embassy, who was popular and showed skill, so was called back and killed. Had left his wife behind because he suspected this might be the case, and didn't decide to just resign and accept living in England instead. But yeah, so she banded together with a few others, which included everyone else who worked in the house with Mr. Garcia, to vengeance. There's an entire sort of secret society devoted to killing this man. But she rose some suspicion in his sort of bodyguard, dog's body, butler sort of figure, who was his right hand man back in San Pedro. And she was captured, and they used the note she'd just written to set a trap for Garcia. and the bodyguard was watching her, and Henderson, as he was known in England, was the killer. He went and killed Garcia as he was crossing to the house. And she,
it was a coordinated effort.
yeah,
Basically.
but when he didn't return, the house staff went on the former note of "if I don't make it back, flee." But the mixed race man, in the haste, forgot what something important to him, which was the first item, which we mentioned.
I think Sherlock described it as a fetish.
Yeah, so
I don't think he used the word as we understand it, but
well, the thing is, in modern language, it means both. It's still fetish, as in totem is still in use. Use, but it's not as commonly encountered a lot. But it's why sometimes you can get a giggle out of like antiques programs, because they will refer to something as a fetish accurately, but then you have English, the language of double meanings. And you'll giggle like a schoolboy. Or not if mistress is present. Again, English, the language of double meanings.
What a language we have.
I think technically you could argue there's three meanings for that, for mistress. Your side woman, the woman in highest level of power in certain educational areas will be mistress, then their surname, and then woman who you are sexually submissive to can also be mistress in place of master, which is also true on the first one, but the context is different with different expectations. But Eddie, or second one. Anyway, that's another aside on the English language.
Yeah,
It's
a wonderful
thing.
We're
going to try. Yeah, yeah, but now that they have a witness, we also learn at this point, because the police are not far behind. Like Inspector Baines was not far behind and gets to hear the story alongside them. We learn that Inspector Baines had arrested the mixed race man, and for Murillo to let his guard down, thinking that he'd got away with it and was safe, while keeping an eye on him himself. It was just sort of like Sherlock went, "Wait, you knew it wasn't that man, but you still arrested him?" Of course, I needed to go to think he's safe. It's just like I followed the same clues you did. While you were scrabbling around on the in the gardens, I was up a tree in the orchard watching you. And, yeah, and Sherlock is actually taken aback a bit by this.
All right,
like,
I'm impressed.
Damn. Not only did you follow the same chords I was following, but you actually spotted me following them. Do you know how few people do that?
I'm amazed more don't think of it, frankly.
Yeah, the people who at this point have managed to do this sort of thing, Sherlock, is Moriarty and Mycroft. And Irene Adler as well.
Yeah.
That one most significantly, because we actually see that one in the text, whereas the others are sort of hinted at. So congratulations, you enter a very distinct club that consists of Irene Adler and yourself.
Yeah. That is quite an exclusive club.
Yeah. But the police officers sent to because she got away from them when they were trying to get her on board the train, because the only reason they haven't killed her is they're not sure they can get away with it here. So they were going to take her someplace else and make her disappear. Or possibly just get her put into an insane asylum, which would also be a valid strategy at this time. but that one is more expensive. But the police officers who go Murillo and his right hand man, uh, they get away from those police officers by slipping out the back door, basically, of a tavern, I think it is, or something like that. But the secret society devoted to their destruction catch up with them in Madrid and succeed in the plan and get away with the killing of the two of them. And then this is where it has the bit of the aside where Sherlock goes to explain the extraordinary things found in the house at the beginning of the second part of the chapter, where it explains there's a fetish and there's the mixed race man is following his faith with as much as Arthur Conan Doyle understands the faith and the research onto it, because probably everything he's read about it or heard about it comes from a white academic who may not have actually studied it in person and has learnt everything from secondhand stories. Because the phrase "unclean gods" appears in there. It's just sort of like,
oh Lord,
yeah, the whole religion is portrayed as a barbaric faith of a barbaric and backwards people. It's
yeah,
and also continues with sort of several of the false narratives about voodooism as well, because this is specifically said to be voodoo as well, which is just
fantastic.
yeah. So it ends on a surprisingly racist note. Sort of disparaging a faith and the people in one go.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just sort of like
not great.
it's not great.
But yep,
Yeah,
that was Wisteria Lodge, which
yeah,
it threw me off the being separated into two parts, because in my first go through I only went through both parts of Wisteria Lodge and the Red Circle, and to be honest, I was only half paying attention. I was playing a game and had it on Audible. It was only the second time I had the Kindle in front of me and sort of immersion read it.
yeah, yeah, and yeah. As I say, I feel certain elements were added to be sensationalized.
Yeah, which I would think would include the like the racist bits, because
Yeah,
he's trying to evoke feelings of well, I mean, it says it at the beginning of the story. He wants, like, they talk about the word grotesque.
yeah, in which unfortunately, generally when he uses the word grotesque to describe a character, it is someone who isn't white. It is applied to near exclusively.
Yeah,
He, like like Moriarty doesn't get described as grotesque, even though the things he does, it certainly would get him into the category.
yeah,
But characters from The Sign of the Four and a few other books do. Genuinely, when we come back and
yeah.
talk about ones we're like, I'm
I
gonna
mean,
have
I
to
know this.
read
I mean,
summaries of them.
yeah. I mean, basically, Victorian era book um, attitudes were very different. The author was a bit racist.
Yeah.
Uh,
So, yeah, that's the story of the adventure of Wisteria Lodge. We'll move away from that, and I will comment that I don't think I heard any of them ejaculate in these four stories.
no, there was no ejaculation this week.
Yeah, which is a bit unfortunate, because I think we could have done with it to balance it out a little.
Yeah, especially that.
Oh,
Especially given that they were incredulous over a white cock.
yes, yes. Uh,
Oh, I had a little aside to sort of let's cleanse the palate
yeah,
from the racism. So I read Feet of Clay by Terry Pratchett a few weeks ago, and well, I'll it's one of the City Watch books, and they're basically fantasy police procedurals. Uh, um, well, in Guards, he makes reference to Sherlock Holmes. He says, the lead character Sam Vine says, once you've ruled out the impossible, then whatever's left, however improbable, must be the truth. The problem lay in working out what was impossible, of course. That was the trick, all right. But then, and they live in a fantasy world with magic, so.
yeah.
But then,
I mean, death occasionally, just for the hell of
yeah,
it.
and he's very polite. But yeah, I love Death in the Discworld. He's one of my favourite characters in it. But in Feet of Clay, I'm just gonna read out a passage. Samuel Vimes dreamed about clues. He had a jaundiced view of clues. He instinctively distrusted them. They got in the way. And he distrusted the kind of person who'd take one look at another man and say in a lordly voice to his companion, "Ah, my dear sir, I can tell you nothing except that he is a left-handed stonemason who has spent some years in the merchant navy and has recently fallen on hard times," and then unroll a lot of supercilious commentary about calluses and stance and the state of a man's boots, when exactly the same comments could apply to a man who's been wearing his old clothes because he's been doing a spot of home bricklaying for a new barbecue pit and
Mm,
and has been tattooed once when he was drunk and 17, for and in fact got seasick on a wet pavement. What arrogance! What an insult to the rich and chaotic variety of human experience! And so he follows it up with, it wasn't by eliminating the impossible that you got to the truth, however improbable. It was by the much harder process of eliminating the possibilities. You worked away, patiently asking questions, looking hard at things. You walked and talked and said, and in your heart you just hoped like hell that some bugger's nerve would crack and he'd give himself up. I just thought that
yeah,
would be a fun thing to bring to one of these.
yeah. I remember seeing Sherlock Holmes saying he is held up as sort of like the pinnacle of deductive reasoning, but a lot of his reasoning is in fact the exact opposite. It's exductive. He sees he sees something and he goes from there to work out something like much bigger that almost doesn't make any sense. Oh, it's the way to do it. It's sort of like deductive is crossing off the possibilities, whereas he go, well, there's like, the boot's in a state like that. He must clearly be a stonemason, and then explains how he got to that conclusion. And it's not deducting; it is exducting,
Yeah.
which is expanding upon it from there. But anyway, uh, the Adventure of the Red Circle, a story we thought was surprisingly similar, actually, and
Yeah.
actually has some similarities to the Valley of Fear as well.
Yeah.
Now, the second half of the Valley of Fear,
Yeah.
Part Two, the American narrative. If Holmes and what we start with a woman pestering Sherlock Holmes,
Yeah.
a woman in 221B Baker Street.
Forsooth.
Yeah. Um, there's a woman who was who was come to see Sherlock because a former tenant of hers had a problem solved by Sherlock. This is not one of the previous adventures. It's one of the ones that we will only get a title of that in passing when and Watson mentions sort of like other stories he considered uh, printing. But she has a tenant that is making her feel mighty unsafe. A large bearded man who now
Well, basically,
is
he
sort of like
won't let her see him at any point. They shut up in the room all the time and just rings for food and supplies whenever needed. and
and
paces
leaves a
about a
note
lot.
to say, yeah, and leaves printed notes to ask for anything that they might need other than that thing what they're on, and it's got her nervous, and it's sort of like the only reason she's let it go as far as she has at this point is because he is paying £10 a fortnight, right? When she was asking for shillings, 10 shillings a fortnight. So I think that's massive. Shillings to pounds. I think a shilling is sort of like a 20th of a pound, so a
Yeah,
5 pence.
yeah, basically. He said he
So
asked my terms,
as
so
we
I
were,
said 50 shillings a week. There's a small sitting room and a bedroom, and all complete at the top of the house. Well, he said I'll pay you £5 a week if I can have it
yeah,
on my own terms. I'm a poor woman, sir, and Mr. Warren earns little, and the money meant much to me. He took out a
yeah,
£10
because
note.
yeah, there'll be one of those every fortnight as like for as long as for many fortnights, as long as you keep to my conditions. Which I'll be honest, I've seen more difficult staff and like guests at B&Bs and hotels and stuff than sort of when I ring for food, just leave it on a tray. I don't want to be seen, especially if they are paying sort of like 50 shillings a week. So that's 50 times 5. That's £2. That would be £2. So he's paying double the rent for it. So essentially, as if she was doing 2 rooms. So yeah, he might be a little strange, but he's actually probably not one of the worst tenants she's had. Apart from she's feeling nervous because all they see to hear is just like the bells and her walking back and forth, and him walking, hearing him walk back and forth. The
I
words
don't
and
remember if it was in this story or last one, but there's a passage that says Holmes never liked the female sex, but was always a chivalrous opponent.
yeah, that was the start of this one and that. I was going to try and skip over that, but no, it would be doing sort of a disservice is to it because we had races in the last one. Now there's a reminder that Holmes doesn't like women, and they were roommates. I tell you, he
Yes,
didn't like women, and he had a roommate
historians will say they
who
were the
moved back
best
in
of
after his own.
friends.
Yeah, and his roommate moved back in after his wife died. He sold his practice and moved back in.
Roommates.
Yes. Yeah, but this then so Holmes and Watson sort of like fine, we will do some. I'm trying to remember actually because the story does blend a bit with the last one
Yeah.
on on yeah, the only time that they've seen him actually leave his rooms was on the first night. Right, so he left on the first night, came back, and hasn't been seen since.
But importantly, he came back after everyone had gone to bed, so nobody actually saw him come back.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so Holmes posits
Holmes,
that
yeah,
how do we know
Holmes
they're the same
listens.
person? They don't.
Yeah, yeah. Holmes listens to her, sort of sends her away, and just goes to Watson. After she leaves, yeah, they've possibly swapped with someone else for that. And there's questions as to why they're printing like what they need rather than handwriting it,
Yeah.
which they figure out later is not too hard. But
Oh,
she comes back the next day and says that she demands essentially that
hold
they
on.
come over.
Hold on. am I still? Oh, sorry. OBS said that I'd gone offline briefly there. So I'm a little bit. I don't know
Yeah,
what that was.
There's been no interruption on YouTube. But
Okay. Sorry, that's just me being jittery when technology
yeah,
tells
no
it.
technology.
Why lie, OBS? Why lie to me?
Because technology. But she comes back the next day and says, "I don't care. I want them out because her husband was kidnapped, basically that morning when he left around 7 in the morning. He was grabbed, and then an hour later was thrown out of a cab, and he wasn't in a good condition. And she made sure he was okay and settled at home before coming over for Sherlock's help.
Yeah.
So like this has happened only like in the last couple of hours by the time she arrives, and he and Watson go back with her to the house, and basically she sets up a mirror and they hide in a room nearby so that they can see the door through the reflection of the mirror. Not much after, there is a jingling of the bell. Food is brought up, and they see the person in the room. It is a woman who is now in the room rather than a bearded man. Holmes had deduced this from a small bit of evidence that it would be someone clean shaven now, which is why they talked about swapping over, because the landlady had brought over the end of a cigarette, so like the butt, and a couple of matches that had been on the breakfast plate, and she'd come over the previous day. And Holmes concluded that it couldn't have been a bearded person because a cigarette smoked this low. Why, Watson, even with your light moustache, it would be singed with that. So someone with a full beard was that, and then Watson went, "What about an extender?" It's just sort of like, no, the end is chewed up. So it couldn't be that. So there's now a woman there, and Holmes had checked his record of classifieds they kept, and figured out that there were some messages being passed before this. This is another theme that will appear in a later story.
Yeah. And indeed, badly ciphered
Yeah,
messages have also appeared before.
yeah, and in this, in one of them, it says, "Look to red bricked house, and remember our code: A is 1, B is 2, etc." And the lights, and they'd spotted sort of like a building that fits the description opposite the place where the room was being rented, and they got a view of it from the box room they were in as well, which I don't know how that works because that's meant to be on the opposite side of the house. But anyway, or they went to a different room and they see Sherlock sees a message being flashed out 3 times, and ATTENTA,
Attenta.
I believe it is. Yeah. The Sherlock is flummoxed by it for a moment and gets annoyed because he can't figure it out at first. And then it clicks. It is Italian. It is danger
And the
being flashed.
A apparently the presence of an A in attenta, I'm not sure which one, betrays it as being addressed to a woman.
Yeah, yeah, I would assume the first A.
Yeah.
But actually no. I was thinking about it. It would be the second, the last one at the end, because it would be like "Signori, Signora"
Ah.
is what I'm gathering from the tiny bit I know.
Yeah.
I struggle with English a fair amount of the time. I did German as my second. language at GCSE. So Italian and French are going to be far beyond me.
Struggle with English. You have a degree in creative writing.
And English literature. It doesn't mean I know how to follow the fucking rules of it, though. Or remember the words, because English as a language beats up other languages and steals loose words and grammar.
Yeah. That is probably the best description of English I have ever heard.
Yeah, and I stole it and then got a I remember on Twitter I was a Magic the Gathering YouTuber I quite like called Jimmy Wong, who's also an actor as well and appeared in the live action Mulan, actually as Ping, if memory serves. He was complaining about why is English so hard and so confusing, and I typed that out for him, and that is the one piece of interaction with any of these YouTubers that I've actually really had a response from was that one.
Yeah.
And I've still got it saved to the pictures on my phone, along with another confusing Twitter moment which said the Cookie Monster is following you. Yeah, which is just sort of like, oh, that is confusing.
Yeah.
And also slightly ominous as well. The Cookie Monster is following you. Just go around and hear quietly in the background, C is for cookie, that's good enough for me. Just as you walk through a dark
do you make a habit of
road.
carrying cookies? I don't understand.
Not often. No, Cookie Monster is behind that thing of this website where agree to share cookies. Yes? No. Click yes, and you just at his computer it pops up, and there's another person agrees to share cookies, and he's just like, excellent. The fools are giving me all the cookies. There was a couple of asides there on top of a third, but another message seems to be being flashed out to go back to the story, and it gets interrupted partway through, and Sherlock and Watson decide now is the time for action rather than finding out of everything that's going on. So they rush over, and they're met by Lestrade and another just officer. I believe it is in this one. It's Lestrade rather than Gregson.
Yeah.
And no, it is. Oh, it's not another officer, because I was thinking that was in the last one, and it is actually Gregson. Gregson and the Pinkerton. They have returned.
Second time in 3 stories.
Yes, Pinkerton has returned. And it turns out Gregson has been following this in the lead from the Pinkerton detective. I don't think we... no, we do get his name. Leverton. It's spelt Leverton. Leverton.
Yep.
And he's following for a criminal from New York, Giuseppe Gorgiano, known as Black Gorgiano, a vicious killer from he was an Italian migrant or a descendant of Italian migrants. It's not made clear, but with a name like that, you're not going to think he's of Spanish or Irish descent, are you? It's
not
not as
really.
bad as what.
Not with a name like Giuseppe.
Not bad as what would probably happen nowadays, in which if you want shorthand for an Italian, there would be Mario in there somewhere.
Oh.
Assassin's Creed, I'm looking at you.
Yeah. There was
Mario.
There was a College Humor or Dorkly sketch called Regular Giuseppe, and it was about the third Mario brother. And he had to stay home and run the laundrette and look after their mom because they wouldn't.
Yeah. But so they've gone inside. There is only one exit apparently, and apparently they've had an eye on it for the entire time going on. Gregson has been following the lead from the Pinkerton detective, Leverston, whatever. And Sherlock says, "Oh, here we're following the lights of the messages." Grayson's like, "The lights? Two strings leading to the same tangle." Oh, he seems to be being a lot politer to the police at this point, which is actually surprising, given the theory we have somewhat of the Arthur Conan Doyle is trying to make Sherlock less likable, to so people would stop asking for his stories. He's yeah, but they get up there, and there is a large man with a knife in his chest. A candle on the floor that has gone out, and another sort of more decorative knife, but also equally vicious, lying next to him. Um, there's a it's a brief sort of like when they're trying to go up the stairs. The Pinkerton tries to go first, but Gregson sort of goes, London troubles, London detectives first," and goes before him and just go like, "Get out of my way! I'm getting the credit for this." It's sort of some of the energy, and also you have no jurisdiction here, yank.
Whoa.
Yeah, yeah, but the Pinkerton identifies this man as Giuseppe Gordano, the one that they were after. And while this is going on, Sherlock has picked up the candle, lit it, and has just flashed it across the window back and forth because he knows the code, because it was put in print. A is 1, B is 2, etc. It is the simplest code imaginable.
Yeah.
Oh, but also, I imagine it would be quite annoying if you had to do Z and you had to bring the candle across the window 26 times, not losing count, then leave a sufficient gap so they know you've gone to the next letter. Which would be annoying if it was a fictional detective Rizzoli from the program and book series Rizzoli and Isles. Because that's Rizz. That would be annoying to do, wouldn't it?
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, they are also supposedly of Italian descent, and but they're a Boston family for quite a few generations, but they have Italian ancestors, and I think some families still in Italy at the time, which is a slightly better claim than a lot of Let's stop that aside before I go even deeper into it.
Anyway, they happen upon a corpse. It is the corpse of what's his name?
Gorgiano.
I think it's Giorgiano. Or I don't know. Giuseppe.
Yeah, it's how it was said in my audiobook, where it's like English accents trying to do Italian names.
Yeah.
Names.
Giuseppe's dead. Is the
yes, the killer the Pinkerton's after is dead, but Sherlock has sent a message across the street, which I imagine basically said, "Safe, come here," because moments later there is a woman standing in the doorway, a young and beautiful woman they refer to her as, who was the one they saw in the mirror earlier, and she, when she learns that Giuseppe is dead,
she basically dances for joy.
Yeah, and we get the full story of what they are. Is they were Italian migrants who went to New York, and they made friends with like the so is friends with, and then they became a member of a group, and sort of like it's like the Vermissa Valley Lodge of Freemasons to an extent of how the group makes its funds is by blackmailing Italians in the community. They'd reached out.
Seb's here. Hey, Seb, how you doing? He says, "What the heck is that plane on the cover meant to be? I hate to say this, but that book cover looks AI generated. I did just Google image it. Is that?"
Yeah, that plane, now I look more closely at it, looks like its wings. It's like it's biplane, but the top wings is collapsed and is covered. Yeah.
I don't get why anyone would AI generate such an old book cover though.
Yeah.
I just did an image search for the title, and that was one of the things that came up.
Yeah.
Could have used several others. To be fair, it was
I'll
from
send you the
Lit.
one that was.
It was from Lit Archive.
Yeah. I've sent you another one which will have a slight amusement given what one of the things we said earlier, if you wish to change it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you send it on? There it is.
I sent on Facebook. But yeah, it turns out her husband had got involved with this organisation which was called the Red Circle. Oh, and yeah, they'd but her husband is called Gennaro, and called Gianno and Gennaro. I'm trying to listen to it with an accent that's closer to mine than an Italian accent.
Sherlock
It
Holmes, the
sound it
inventor of the biblically accurate biplane.
it sounded it was so ridiculously hard to try and work out
I don't think it
which.
is AI generated. I think it's just poorly drawn. That a poorly
Yeah,
drawn plane. Because I got that from a Lit Archive website. I don't think they would AI generate a cover. Uh,
yeah,
but
but yeah, they basically her husband was good and proper, was in this organization in Italy and ran away from it, which is why they went to New York. And then Gorgiano came and basically forced him back into it and forced himself into Gennano's life and tried to get his steal his wife away, which didn't work. So when it then came to
okay,
that
there
they're sponsoring,
there is the new one
yeah,
of Sherlock Holmes holding a.
a what cock,
Yep. Um, Seb, you missed all the puerile laughing about the phrase "a white cock."
yeah. You also missed the uncomfortable acknowledgement of the racism in the same story.
Yeah, that that it was an effort to diffuse the tension of. Why is Sherlock
Yeah,
stroking his cock? Yeah. uh,
yeah,
Glad you're here.
yeah. But so Gennaro, to get away from Gorgiano after basically being told that his friend and sponsor to the US was being targeted for murder, as an example, for those who would refuse to play the blackmail to the Red Circle. Oh, he ran away with his wife to England, warned his friend before they left that this was coming so he could keep his eye out. They were going to blow his house up with dynamite, which is also was the first mission that Picton was doing undercover in the Valley of Fear, the Valley. Hmm, me senses similarities in this narrative to a couple of others.
Sorry, you went
But
very tinny and robotic there for a second. I just about got it, but you might want to repeat it anyway. For...
yeah, he was told he'd had to kill his friend and sponsor by blowing his house up with dynamite. So he basically went, fuck this, ran away to England with his wife, set up the hiding, warned his friend before they left that they were planning to kill him, and this was how, so he could take measures. And it was just like, this is very similar to how they the undercover Pinkerton was to kill his first target in
The
the
Valley of
Valley of
Fear.
Fear in the Advermissa Valley. Similarities in plot, methinks. But yeah, so Emily, I believe her name is, was sent to hide in this place. The husband was trying to deal with Gorgiano, and he did when he was sending a message. He was being snuck up on, and he struck the man down, and then vanished out of a doorway for that. And
After
yeah,
his wife regales them with this story, they conclude that he probably wouldn't serve time for this.
yeah, the wife is taken down to the police station to essentially give a statement, and Sherlock had, oh by Jove, it's not yet 8 o'clock. It's Wagner season. If we hurry, we can make the second half. Reminding us that Sherlock's other love, other than investigation, is music. It hasn't really been commented upon a lot in recent stories, but yes, he does actually like music.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, this one is just sort of like, right, the mystery's done, on to other things immediately.
Yeah. I'm going to be honest, the next one I remember very little of. And it was quite long.
I will try and do this quickly, but this one was the last two stories have not really been adapted of late. Like, there was a series by Granada in '94 which did most of them, but I'm not sure that they actually did Wisteria Lodge because of the racist elements that are so fundamentally tied into the story.
Yeah.
For sensational reasons only, really.
Oh wait, no, this is the one with Mycroft in it. Yeah, I do actually remember.
Yeah, but this next one was adapted by the BBC Sherlock series as their season 2 ender, in part. Oh no, their season 1 ender, their season 2 ender. He died.
Yeah, I was gonna say their season 2 ender was the final problem.
Yeah, no, it's just confusing. The one, the one where we learned that Jim, who was dating Molly, who was presenting as a homosexual, is in fact Moriarty.
Yeah.
But before we learn that his ringtone is "Staying Alive" by the Bee Gees.
Yeah. Bruce Partington sounds like someone trying to remember who played the vampire in Twilight.
Yeah. But
yeah. So
yeah, this one starts with
yeah, Sherlock Holmes has got a telegram from Mycroft declaring a visit, which is practically unheard of.
Yeah, the number of times Mycroft has visited before this is once. Holmes describes him as he is a tram. His life is on rails. His rooms, the Diogenes Club, Westminster, that's it.
And this is where the line comes from. I think... Watson says, I remember you told me he occupies a position in the British government. He says, I didn't know you so well then, but it would probably be more accurate to say that in some ways he is the British government.
Yes. Also important for the story at this point, London is currently under one of its banks of smog that happened at this time. And that is also driving Holmes up the wall because it's just like, could have the most fantastic case, but I cannot see the outside world to see it. And then Mycroft comes along, bringing the most fantastic case. Because
Seb says, I am the Senate.
Yeah. Mycroft comes along to talk about Arthur Cadogan West, which is reported in the papers, and I think they were catching up on it on this after he just sort of like talks about Mycroft's position in that. Because Mycroft is basically take Sherlock's abilities and dial them up to 11.
Yeah.
And
At,
but he
at the
has
expense of his mobility.
he has a laziness issue. He
Yeah.
doesn't like to physically exert himself. And indeed they describe him as being quite large in this one. But you can sort of forget about it because of like the face and the intelligence in his eyes, that you quite forget about the abnormal largeness of his body. Like he struggles out of his overcoat. Out is one of the descriptions. I believe he comes with one of the police inspectors. I want to say Lestrade for this one, as we've had Gregson for the last two. Yes, it was Lestrade. I just found it. No. Yes, I'm right, given I've said Lestrade for the Red Circle as well, and that turned out to be Gregson.
Yeah.
And,
well,
yeah.
Yeah, Sherlock Holmes is looking for a case, and it's like, see how the figures. There have, said I, been numerous petty thefts. Holmes snorted his contempt.
Oh, please. Petty thefts. It's just sort of like, the only petty theft he was interested in was the 6 Napoleons. And that's just because there was some. Why is this Napoleon hating lunatic going around only after these specific molds of Napoleon? It's just sort of like the answer is because he's realised it's specific mold. There must be something more to it than just hating Napoleon.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mycroft is, well, his role in government has said is to be that. He just basically absorbs all the knowledge from various departments and then works out what would happen if we did X in response to Y, what would be the long-term effect on not just Y, but A, B, and C unconnected, and they're those. So, yeah, that's why he so this. And the fact that something has happened, the death of this man, has dragged Mycroft off the rails to 221B, suggests something could just be about to spiral horrendously out of control. And we learn that the Prime Minister and the Admiralty are in a fuss, the likes of which we have never seen before. Now, we're not given really a timing for when this happens, other than it's after the Greek interpreter.
Yeah.
Somewhat, and by the sounds of it, it's also after Mary has died, but I think she passed away before the Greek interpreter anyway. No.
What about magnanimous? I ain't Napoleon, me.
Yeah, but it turns out this Arthur had access to the eponymous Bruce Partington plans, which is, from what I remember, a submarine. Sort of like, hence the Admiralty being so up in arms about losing access to these plans.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was released in 1908. So, given U-boats were in action 6 years later, in warfare, submarines have probably been developed by this point. But we learned from Mycroft that there's a series of 30 sheets of paper that contain all the specifications to make this, but 10 are missing, and 7 of them turned up on Arthur Cadogan's body. So he needs the other 3 pages back, because they are the 3 most important pages. Like, without these, you can't make it work, sort of thing. And there's only 2 people who have keys to access the safe that they're kept in. One of them is a high-ranking member. What was it? Whose name and accolade would take up 2 lines in a reference book. So he is well titled, like many knightly orders at his disposal,
Right.
sort of thing. And there's confirmation that the plans were still in the safe after he'd left that day and arrived elsewhere in the country by train. So he's out of suspicion. And the other person with a key, he is also relatively out of suspicion because he's a long time government service, 5 children, doesn't show any signs of it. And he, while he has a key to the safe, he doesn't have keys to get through the other doors to get to the room with the safe in it. The room having burglar-proof doors and windows, which, I'll be utterly honest, I don't think there's such a thing as a burglar-proof window.
No.
Because if there's a window, that is a weak point. A door, you sort of need it to be able to get in there, but that's again another weak point. Frankly,
So if there's submarines were about at the time, I'm not sure they'd been used much, but it would have been exciting. It would have been exciting to feature one in the story at the time.
Yes. So it is still displayed as a very new technology. And Michael says that the British government, through various sort of means, undercover, has acquired a monopoly on the technology. So they're trying to stop that, and they have uses for them. It's again suggested to be covert rather than outright, sort of like we will use them as part of the main battle line because rule Britannia, Britannia rules the waves. It's the sort of thing that makes perfect sense that the British Navy would. Frankly, we would have invaded the continent to get this technology and having a monopoly on it at this point.
Yeah.
But once someone figures out how to do it, there's probably likely that someone else is not massively far behind either.
Yeah.
So these 3 plans are out missing, and the body was found having supposedly come off a train, but there was no ticket on the body. And they're not sure why this man would do it because it's sort of like he took originals, but is later on in this. But he has the relevant skills to make copies that are accurate, like technically accurate for it. It's he didn't need to take the originals.
So did you know that the most successful U-boat captain in the First World War was the von Trapp father? Also weird to think that Austria had a navy at the time.
Yeah. I knew he was a U-boat captain. I didn't realise he was the most successful one. No wonder they wanted him back in the war. And to go with the sound of music, sort of like their telling of the man's story, the route they take to get away from when they're running away from the Nazis would have taken them past the Eagle's Nest while Hitler was there. Just like for the fictional narrative of it, it's just all like, yeah, let's avoid the Nazis by walking past Hitler's favourite retreat. Anyway, but yes, the young clerk had been found dead, head injury by near a tube station with no ticket, and these 7 pages on him. And and Mycroft is terrified because of this. But it's just like, while he could do all the deductions himself, and they might actually be deductions, and though unlikely given Arthur Conan Doyle doesn't seem to know what a deduction is.
Yeah. Dan earlier said differentiated deduction and what was it, exduction?
Exduction was the phrase I've heard to describe it, though I don't know if that is entirely the correct phrase. And no, I don't think Hitler would have been looking for them like the Eye of Sauron, but it does mean that if he had been in the Eagle's Nest at the time, the number of Nazi guards about would have been much higher. Is more my point. So running away from Nazis by running to a Nazi e-location is not the best idea. Again, this is the film narrative in the direction that they were shown going and stuff like that, not the real life narrative.
It is weird that the idea of travelling to a landlocked country to try and make a character from a musical command your U-boats. It'd be like getting the king from The King and I to run your space program.
Yeah. Yeah, but now on The King and I is just sort of like they have the king dies at the end and his son starts giving proclamations that women should be treated equally to men and all of that. So he reams off about like he's 13 14, so he's very young, and he's like gives off reams of proclamations completely changing the social order of the country. It's just all like, yeah, his rule lasted less than a day before someone killed him. Just the reality of the situation there.
Yeah.
It's just sort of like you try to change that much in the society that quickly via royal proclamation, some lord is going to stab you. The closer they were to danger, the further they are from harm. I don't think that logic actually held up even in Lord of the Rings. The idea being to get the Ents angry at seeing what's happened to the forest in Isengard. Anyway, Arthur Conan Doyle. So, yeah, they start tracking down. They have a look, and Holmes deduces that the man had never been on in the train. He had been on the train. He had been on the roof, and
he'd fallen off.
He'd fallen off of it. He was dead when he was on the roof. He didn't fall onto it. He had been deliberately put onto it because the roof was curved, so he couldn't have just fallen on with no rails. He would have just the momentum would have just sent him off the side.
Yeah, he had been pre-murdered.
Yeah, so he was murdered. And the reason he fell off where he did was because there was a curve in the line. There aren't a lot of curves in the London Underground. And it was also a points. They'd just gone over some points, which is where, for those who don't know, which is where the lines can change ever so slightly and it switches you to a different line. So you can have 10 trains use the same one, but points will then switch them onto different ones so they have different end points.
Yeah.
So it is frankly a remarkable simple system for what it actually achieves. And also, it still hurts my head to think, hang on, the Underground was around in the 19th century.
Yeah.
It's just my head refuses to do that just because of the sheer work on doing the actual underground stations. It is part of my bias from growing up in the 20th and 21st century, and the sheer growth of technology in that time makes me think that surely they weren't much beyond clubs in the 19th century, even though guns had been around for 400 years by that point.
Yeah, I think people have trouble with the idea that people were roughly the same level of competent back then that we are now. They just didn't have as much access to resources and technology.
Yeah, it is. They were the foundation. They made the foundational discoveries that allowed this technology to evolve, and that happens every generation. And you sort of we build up on this. We stand upon the shoulders of giants, which we don't realize is actually we're just standing on the shoulders of another man who stood on the shoulders of another man, who then stood on the the pyramid of unrespected labor that was the women in all of these men's lives.
Yeah.
Yeah. The
That's
unpaid
true.
and unrecognized labor. Ada Lovelace is like one of the major exceptions to unrecognized women in their field because she is relatively well known as part of the foundation for what would become the computing machine that then became Colossus, where under Alan Turing's guidance, which then became the modern computer and the internet.
Yeah.
Again, another aside, we really are not talking about these books particularly well. It took us 50 minutes to get through the first one, and the audiobook is only 56.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, but that was because of some asides and acknowledging sort of some of the problems with the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
So
after this,
Sherlock goes to visit a Sir James, but instead finds his brother.
Yeah, because Sir James was one of the two people who held the keys, but he has passed away since this the news of the paper's disappearance has come out. Ostensibly from a broken heart at the loss of his honour. At this, caused by the loss of these pages, which is a very sort of romanticised Victorian view of it, sort of. Though I can't say for sure that modern authors would have the same idea, but wouldn't necessarily call it honour.
Yeah.
Yeah, because where's Prince Zuko when you need him? Honour! Look, your honour! Where? The Ember Highland play. But, yeah. Yeah, but that is how was explained by Colonel Valentine Walter, the Sir James's brother.
Yeah.
So after this news and sort of like seeing the state that the house and Sir Colonel Valentine was in they go to visit Arthur West's fiance, and they learn that something had been disturbing him for a week or so. And bother him, and then on the way to the theatre with his wife at night, he just suddenly vanishes off into the fog, and they
Well, he doesn't vanish. He runs off.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden.
Yeah, he'd in the previous week, the closest he got to saying to anything to his wife or his fiance about what it was that have no idea how easy it is, how unsafe the secret is, how easy it would be for a traitor to get their hands on it. Referring to the submarine, but not planned, but not saying anything to that. And yeah, he'd vanished into the fog when they were on their way to the theatre, and she has no explanation for that. And then from there, they go to the office where the plans were kept and stolen, and speak with Sidney Johnson, the senior clerk, who was the other key holder. And this is where we learned that he didn't have keys to the two doors. The only person who had keys to all of it is the now dead Sir James. And it is confirmed, but it has been confirmed by his brother, his wife, and a servant that the keys never left the house. They were seen repeatedly throughout the day, the evening, once he returned. And they conclude that West had no copies of the additional keys he needed. West, Sidney, and Sir James all have the skills to make copies of the plans without having to take the originals. So it is seeming less like it is like makes no sense for any of them to be doing it. It so yeah, and they learned something new here, which they use to their advantage later on. In that, well, yes, the 3 pages taken are vitally important to making it. Even if you could um, reproduce everything from the 3 pages, there is a 4th page that they missed amongst the 10. That because a lot of it could be extracted because we've been building boats for centuries by this point. A lot could be extracted for how to build the U-boat. But essentially, a vital component, which is the most unique one, that no one else has invented an equivalent of, the page for that is missing. Was amongst the 7 that they recovered. So the person who's stolen the plans doesn't have everything they'd need and might soon realise it. So while we've lost these, it's not as critical as we thought it was.
Yeah.
Which again actually has Holmes thinking that West is innocent of this and is not a traitor, because he had the skill to do the copies. He would have the skill to know which were the important pages to get to sell. His upcoming marriage is held up as a reason as to why he would turn traitor to fund it, but by the wife's account, they're actually relatively well off with hundreds in savings, which, frankly, I wish I had hundreds in savings right now.
Yeah.
Now, like, on modern money, let alone hundreds of Victorian pounds translated to modern
that
pounds.
reminds me, at the beginning of the story, Sherlock says that Mycroft takes home a salary of £450, I believe.
Yes, which I think is I think that was less than Moriarty took home they mentioned Moriarty making in the Valley of Fear.
Yeah.
I think they said he took home 700.
Well, just to get up the inflation calculator, this is 18. Wait, are we in the 1900s yet?
Yes, the story came out in 1908. I'm not sure exactly when it is set, but that was when it came out.
Okay, in 1908, £450 equates to £48,229 today.
I'll be honest, that's not the best wage. It's not the best wage for a government worker at the moment.
Well, I think Sherlock was making the point that he doesn't take a lot of money.
Yeah, because I believe in the starting salary of an MP is over 80,000. And so anyway, there's asides on that, but they stop at the nearby train station and talk to the clerk to see if he remembered seeing West, and he does, because the man seemed to be taken with some form of excitement, because he couldn't pick up his change and had to be handed it off at the side because he was shaking so much. And that he bought a ticket to London Bridge, taking a train that way. So Sherlock sends the information off to Mycroft and then gets a list from Mycroft he requested earlier, which is all the foreign agents and spies that Mycroft knows of or the British government knows of in England at the moment, which means all the ones Mycroft know of, because he will have absorbed all that information.
Which will be all
while doing this. Yeah. And Sherlock begins crosses a lot of them out while doing interests, and he narrows one down to Hugo Oberstein, who is a man who has recently left town shortly after the murder of West. Yes, and he did a small reconnaissance, and then sent Watson a message, going, I mean, could you bring the following tools, please? Basically, meet me at this Italian restaurant with them, and it's just a list of breaking and entering tools. Which Watson has hidden under his coat in a foggy London as he goes to meet his friend at an Italian restaurant, and to partake of coffee and a light dessert before they go breaking into Oberstein's house. Now that he's not there,
Well, you
which
need
through
the
a little
pre-break-in coffee.
obviously, no, nothing helps you pick locks than jittery hands from having a coffee. He, um, and yeah, Sherlock has worked out that Oberstein's house is because not all of the London Underground is actually underground, even at this point, and it backs up on that. And they've figured out that Oberstein's house is one that backs up onto the line. So the back of his house, the trains are basically there within arm's reach. So they break into this because he figures that's where the body was put on the train. And he's searching. They examine. They found this smears on the windowsill that backs up to the line that supports his theory. Helpfully, a train stops not long afterwards, and we see it actually stops there for a few minutes. So plenty of time to get a body onto the top of the train. And Holmes then starts going through all the documents that he can find in the house. And it takes him over an hour to conclude that of the loose documents, there is nothing of value. But there is a money box that has been left behind, which doesn't have any money in it. It has a few sort of technical workings in it of someone trying to figure out like technical issues. And then it's in an envelope and a very incriminating series of cuttings from the agony section, or like the thing where like messages, lost connections, and stuff like that, where the sort of like codes and the back and forth of like encoded of sort of like reminding the conversations for the sale of these pages. It's you can Holmes works out it's for the sale of these pages because otherwise, why would he keep this person keep them? These pieces alongside technical drawings that aren't the ones that we were after. Holmes was after. So he sends in another message written in the same style to get him to get the traitor to come and meet him at the house, and he's brought along a police officer after updating Mycroft, Lestrade, and I think just a normal police officer. No, Mycroft also comes, I believe, because he does talk at this point. So Mycroft is really off of his rails at this point. He's actually coming and talking to.
Yeah, he's doing some legwork.
Yes, grumbling the whole time, I imagine. But yeah, the time comes. There's a knock at the door. The place is dark. Sherlock lets the man in and locks the door quickly behind him. And then they walk in. Finally, there's some light, and he realizes that he's been had, because the message said, essentially, he gave him another chance to earn that much money because there's things missing. And the traitor turns out to be Sir James's brother, Colonel Valentine, who had made copies of all the keys required much earlier in that, because the keys were just kept on a watch chain in the house when it wasn't at office, and had overheard about the importances of the files. So he saw a chance to make money. He stole the pages. Was something he'd done had risen the suspicion in West. So when West saw him making his way there, he followed him, but he didn't sort of confront him immediately because there was a chance he was taking files to his brother. When he determined that wasn't the case, he confronted him, was promptly murdered, and then stuck on the top of the train after what was his name? Hugo had determined that these 3 pages are the ones he need. Put the other 7 into his pocket. People will think he's the traitor. We get away scot-free.
Yeah.
Mycroft offers a chance to for Colonel Valentine to restore his honor, make restitution, and possibly lessen his punishment. And which
He doesn't make any promises there, though.
he doesn't make promises. He offers the possibility. And it does work because he says he doesn't know anything of where Hugo is going, but Sherlock was like, and if you needed to get into contact with him again, well, he said that any letters to this hotel in Paris would eventually reach him, and they use this information and the fact that there will be a 4th page that's needed to make this work to lure Hugo back to England, or to a place that they're choosing in England, because I think they also put it in the paper. So they sees it before he gets to Paris. Or he gets to Paris and then he sees it and then comes back, because he has the 3 other pages on him when they then arrest him for that. And the story ends with 3 sort of things. We learn that Hugo Oberstein gets 15 years in prison for espionage, which seems a bit light for Victorian England at this. Colonel Valentine dies 2 years into his sentence.
So
He died in prison. And Holmes goes out at one point to at the request of Mycroft, and he comes back with a new expensive tie/lapel pin in that Watson is under no illusions as to the generous, gracious lady who gave it to him. He's under no illusion that it was, in fact, or he knows that while Sherlock is being modest, he got it at Windsor from Queen Victoria. And that when he looks upon it, he will be forever reminded of the adventure of the Bruce Partington plans. And that's how it ends.
yeah.
Yeah.
When I asked him if he had bought it, he answered that it was a present from a certain gracious lady in whose interests he had once been fortunate enough to carry out a small commission. He said no more. But I fancy I could guess at the lady's August name, and I have little doubt that the emerald pin will forever recall to my friend's memory the adventure of the Bruce Partington plans. That was the actual message.
Yeah, this is one of the stories where they make sort of reference to august people, and it isn't a fictional august person, it is actually the Queen of England at this time. Because I did look it up for Charles Augustus Milverton, because it was just like wondering. There is no specific woman that it was based on. I think you said you'd had the idea that it might have been Victoria at one point, but then discarded it because, well, if it was, Sherlock and Watson would have recognised her immediately, and there wouldn't have been this bit where they have to go to the camera shop to figure, because Sherlock's recognised and is then pointing it out to him.
Yeah.
But, like, near enough every sort of figure that we meet of some
Bruce Partington's real deal. Very funny. Although, I find if you want to clean up your language for algorithm's sake, I mean, I don't bother, but if you do, then instead of swear words, saying the name of daytime TV shows is almost as good. Like,
yeah, yeah, and that's all like.
Oh, cash in the attic.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that Pat Cash or Johnny Cash in your attic? Tennis player or a country music star? But yeah, in a lot of Arthur Conan Doyle's works, if they make reference to sort of honourable gentlemen and give names and titles and such, they are fictional versions, possibly based upon real people. Oh, but because I imagine that some things about the prime ministers and well-renowned former prime ministers will have some reflection on real-life politicians that Arthur Conan Doyle has lived through their premiership. But yeah, he doesn't write about actual people in his stories, though he does take inspiration, as again in the Charles Augustus Milverton story, it is based upon, in part, a story that was of a crime that can be committed at the time. That's the only one I know for sure that it was sort of like the closest where someone is actually based on someone, and it's not flattering. The person, the character based upon this person is the loathsome blackmailer.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the story was part of what was used for the Great Game. That was the name of the episode. The season ender of the first season of Sherlock.
Yeah, the one which had several bombs that Sherlock had to defuse. I'm fairly sure. No, that may have been another one.
That was a. Yeah, that was
Sorry, it's been forever since I watched that show.
Yeah, this one was the train aspect. The civil servant who stole top secret plans was used in the Great Game in that one. Yes, it was the one with the bombs.
Oh,
I had a quick look. It is the two. It's just they don't feel like they go together as a single episode, do they?
Not really.
Okay, Sherlock is off solving. Yeah, Sherlock is off solving
Some days
the
you
bomb.
just can't get rid of a bomb.
Yeah, Sherlock is off doing his best Adam West Batman impression. Mycroft had taken to Sherlock this case about the civil servant who had died, who had taken some plans that were important. But he fobs that off onto Watson for most of the story. And then at the end, we learn that Sherlock has actually been working the case anyway. It's just sort of like, I told Mycroft I wasn't taking it just to annoy him. And yeah, and then goes on, and he then steals the plans, offers them to Moriarty to because he thinks that's what Moriarty wants. So Moriarty then throws them into the swimming pool because I could get these anytime I wanted.
So bad that although famously Christian Bale's Batman also struggled to get rid of a bomb.
Yeah, that's just true, but that's not quite as comical. Yeah, but that is the
Okay, the last one is very short, but I also enjoyed this one probably more than the others because I don't know. It was, as I said before, it was quite unique and it left an impression on me, and so it begins with Watson entering 221B to find Sherlock basically dying.
Yeah. Entering 221B at the behest of Mrs. Hudson, who's come to see him. Because Sherlock has been deathly ill for
a little passage from this that describes their relationship a bit. As soon as I find it. Mrs. Hudson, the landlady of Sherlock Holmes, was a long-suffering woman. Not only was her first-floor flat invaded at all hours by throngs of singular and often undesirable characters, but her remarkable lodger showed an eccentricity and irregularity in his life which must have sorely tried her patience. His incredible untidiness, his addiction to music at strange hours, his occasional revolver practice within doors, his weird and often malodorous scientific experiments. Malodorous means smelly. And the atmosphere of violence and danger which hung around him that made him the very worst tenant in London. On the other hand, his payments were princely. I have no doubt that the house might have been purchased at the price which Holmes paid for his rooms during the years that I was with him.
Yeah. There was one thing to note with this story is this is in the second year of his marriage. So this is a lot earlier than a lot of other stories. So we have taken quite a step back as to how long ago this was. But Mrs. Hudson has come to see Watson because Sherlock is ill with a tropical disease and has not eaten or drunk for 3 days and looks terrible, and she is worried. Watson, who has not heard of this, immediately goes over to 221B and comes in, and Holmes, he sounds weak. Is like Watson notes that he is, for brevity's sake, basically cutting out all of the coughing and wheezing that his friend is doing during this period, and Watson is determined to help him, and Sherlock. They use the phrase
will not let him near him because he is sure that he's sick with something very contagious.
Yeah, they use the phrase "his mastery" to describe like the force of his personality at this point. And it's just like, he may be ill, but his mastery has never been stronger, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like, he's got... Watson is following his instructions despite his misgivings. Because Watson's determined to get an expert doctor in that he knows about. And Holmes forbids him. And Holmes actually pulls himself out of bed and locks the door and robs the key.
Says so long as he doesn't also cut out all of the Ekins and Arbok. Because you said coughing and wheezing.
I didn't realise I'd done that. Well picked up, Sam. Well done.
Coughing was my favourite as a kid. He just looked very happy.
Yeah.
And I liked the way he said, coffee!
Yeah, the anime version was fantastic. But, Watson has been forbidden to get these doctors, has essentially been locked in, but is not allowed to get close to Sherlock. So he's looking around, and he notices a small box on the mantle that he goes to pick up, and Holmes goes...
Don't fucking touch it!
Yeah, basically goes ballistic at this point. And Watson doesn't touch it, and sort of like... he's showing signs of delirium along with looking awful. And Watson's very concerned, but Holmes says, we will talk more at 6. And they're both basically watching the clock. And then shortly after 6,
rambling about oysters.
Yeah, I should wonder that the bottom of the ocean is not completely oysters. It's for the abundance of the species. But he tells Watson not to get any sort of the well-renowned doctors that Watson would be go to, but a man who Smith is his name. Culverton Smith, that was it.
Yeah.
To summon him, and because he is the world's foremost expert on this illness. Watson is actually offended earlier, before their 2 hours of silence, roughly, because Holmes refuses to let Watson treat him as sort of like he disparages slightly Watson's skill as a doctor, not saying that he can't work as a doctor, he's not good as a doctor, but that he doesn't have the specialist knowledge required for this illness because he is a general practitioner thing. But Watson takes it relatively well when it's framed in that way, because he does say Sherlock, well, you have no confidence in my skills, and Sherlock then explains that is just sort of, right. What do you know of this fever? I can't remember the name of it. Tapulili? Tapanuli. Yeah. But
sorry, I'm just scanning the text looking for it.
Yeah, Culverton Smith cannot be summoned like some mongrel pup. That actually sums up this interaction fairly well to begin with, when Watson goes over to his house.
What he says is, at least have something in which I have then you have no confidence in me. In your friendship, certainly, but facts are facts, Watson, and after all, you're only a general practitioner with very limited experience and mediocre qualifications. It is painful to have to say these things, but you leave me no choice.
Yeah.
So he did slag him off a bit.
Yeah. I'm liking Sam's addition to the they were roommates dialogue here. This fever presents itself when you both touch me and hold me tight. You give me fever. In your kisses and fever when you hold me tight.
Yeah. Well done, sir.
Yes, well done. But Watson goes with the instructions that he's turned the gas on to half light, so half for the light in the room, and he's gone with the instruction that he is to get him here by any means, but he is not to come with him. So he's got you have other engagement. You must let him say if he tries to come with you that you have other engagements you must attend to. Now, Sherlock is not well liked by Mr. Culverton Smith, as he reveals, because Sherlock is Sherlock has accused him of malfeasance and murder, basically.
Yep.
Yeah.
That'll get you on someone's shit list.
Yeah, and to spread this around town, which is a very un-Sherlock thing to do.
I don't know why I keep going in things like because I've read the same story you have.
Yeah. Yeah, but Watson basically barges in past the butler at Culverton Smith's residence after hearing the exchange between the butler and Smith, who was just like, I will see him on the morrow. I am in my studies. I will see him on the morrow. And Watson's like, I don't have time for this shit. Sherlock might be dead by tomorrow. So he goes in and he just about manages to persuade Culverton Smith to do it, or at least that's how it is presented. Though he notes when, after he says that Sherlock Holmes is deathly ill with a tropical disease that he seems to have caught from being around the Chinese at the docks. So an Oriental disease is what is also referred to as a couple of times. He's like, after this, he swears that he, for a moment, sees a look of malicious triumph cross Culverton Smith's face in the mirror, but he puts it aside. And
I mean, that's given the game away, hasn't it?
Yeah. Watson hasn't put two and two together at this point. Right? That he persuades Smith to come along, and Smith is ready to leave about half an hour later. And Watson gets back to Baker Street, and Holmes tells him to hide behind his bed, and for God's sake, do not make a sound. And Culverton Smith then arrives and proceeds to basically gloat while Sherlock seemingly begs for help saving his life. And he goes, "Oh no, no!" And it's just sort of like, "My nephew is stronger than you. Died of this on his 4th day or his 3rd. You're not going to make it." It's just sort
And I
of
want
like,
you to know that it was I who killed you.
yes, it's just sort of like, think, was there anything strange that came? Because you also had Watson reset a load of papers, and using sugar tongs to move the box he almost touched earlier into the heart of those papers. It's a little ivory box. And it's just sort of like, nothing strange arrived by post in on the day that you fell ill. And it's just sort of like, yes, a little box of a sharp sprig. It's just like, yes, yes, it's I who sent you that, and you'll be. Ah, look, here it is. He picks up the box and puts it in his pocket. And now the evidence will leave with me, and you shall die. I will give you water, so you only because you are dying. And yes, can you turn the gas up? So, yes, all the better to see you die. Basically, it seems to be his logic. So he turns the gas fully up. Sherlock suddenly sounds a lot more healthy in this next sentence, as a police officer comes in,
Yeah.
and that is just sort of like it reveals that it was all a trap set there, and Culverton Smith is like, nothing you say will work against me. My word is as good as yours, and I came here to help you from after you begged for me. After your friend, I can't remember his name, came and begged me to save you. It was just sort of like the situation will be that, and it's just sort of, oh yes, I completely forgot. Watson,
Yeah.
and Watson comes out and is just a, oh shit, he has a witness.
Yep, I heard
Damn it.
everything.
Yeah,
And
that's a blast.
he asks Sherlock, "How did you manage to like look so deathly ill if you weren't really?" He's like, "Well, I still haven't eaten or drank anything for 3 days. That and a little bit of makeup. It's surprising how haggard you can look." Yeah.
I haven't eaten or drunk in 3 days. I've applied makeup, and I have not kept up with my toilet, as unregular with that as I am. Which, in this context, sounds a lot worse than what it means, because this is like, well, I've just shat the bed for 3 days. It's how it feels.
Yeah. Ain't nobody gonna assume I'm well.
Yeah, yeah, but yes, and he also points out that how he didn't fall prey to the box was because of my profession and the many men who I put away in the war, and many people who want me dead. I decided to I check my mail with a lot more precision.
Hold on, give it a second, mate. You're going all robotic again.
Yeah. This any better?
Yep, you're good.
Basically, Sherlock has pissed off enough powerful, angry people who will happily resort to murder that he checks his post thoroughly before opening anything. And that's how he spotted a box with a spike in it. It deduced it was probably what they were trying to do. Because we learned that the man has a collection of virulent diseases, examples of them contained in his study. And that he also did this to his nephew. So Sherlock was right, he did murder his nephew, and he was right how. He now has witnesses to a confession and the attempted murder of Sherlock Holmes as well. And the police have retrieved the ivory box carefully. Because, spring with a tropical disease with no currently known cure on it.
Yeah.
Or disease with this. Yeah. Though he does admit that he had to he does sort of cheer Sherlock up a bit. It's just like, do you think that I think so much of your abilities? I think I could fool you close up of a disease sufferer with not running fever or any signs of I can't remember what the other ones was. Basically, fever or increased heart rate. So from 4 yards away, I could fool you, but up close, I could not. Because he needed what's it? Because it's just like amongst your many talents, lying is not basically, and I needed you to firmly believe, Eve, that you were interceding on my behalf medically, and that I was dying. So that sincerity would then pass on to Culverton Smith, who would then come and gloat and incriminate himself. Now, Watson, shall we go out to eat somewhere nice? I'm starving.
Which is a fantastic way to end that particular story. I actually like that one.
Yeah. Yeah, it is one of the more unique ones in all of the Sherlock Holmes stories we've done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Seb has given me instructions if my voice goes again to recite lines by S Club 7. Specifically, don't stop moving to the funky, funky beat.
Thing is, I don't think you can hear when it happens, so I would have to tell you.
No, I can't. I need to be told.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's it's an interesting take, a good sort of deception into getting a confession. I don't know how it would hold up pulling this trick in modern legal or modern courts and legal systems, and especially as Watson was a former roommate of Holmes, and therefore it could still be entrapment because he's not an independent witness, sort of thing. But yeah, it's different. Of he's bringing the criminal to him rather than he's going to the criminal, but he does occasionally bring the criminal to him. But it's a reminder that yes, people actually want Sherlock dead, other than Moriarty and Arthur Conan Doyle.
Yeah, I mean, he would have made more than one enemy.
Yeah, I believe in the Bruce Parrington plans, he makes reference to having over 50 like powerful men who want him dead. Though that is somewhat later than this story, but even now he's got to already have had about half a dozen to a dozen of them on his. The powerful people have him on his shit list, and Moriarty's still alive at this point as well. So, yeah, there's a very powerful man who has him on his shit list, who has probably just lost a perfectly reasonable poisoner.
Yeah.
God damn it, Culverton Smith. I told you not to poison Sherlock. Why? Because that just gives him what he wants. A chance to prove he's smarter than everyone else in the room and get a poisoner off the streets of London. You'll now have to die.
Yeah. So yeah, those were the first 4 stories of His Last Bow. And
well, those were 4 stories of His Last Bow because
the first 4
sources
we're doing.
Yes.
If Arthur Conan Doyle were alive today, he'd go on Joe Rogan and talk about fairies for 3 hours. Oh God, he would. Oh,
yeah.
I mean, I've probably said this now many times. I still love that he ended a friendship with Harry Houdini because he would not believe that his illusions were illusions.
Yeah.
Despite being told that.
Yeah. What was it again? I've said this before as well, and I've sent it in a group chat. So it's just sort of like, I know fairies aren't real, but I wish they were, so I could spray one with a can of Raid. Houdini to his wife after a tiresome dinner with Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Yeah.
Okay, so that was a good one to end on because that was actually quite different and fun. Whereas it's getting clear that he ran out of ideas some time ago. Other than that,
Yeah, I believe that his last bow as a collection was published in 1917. But the casebook of Sherlock Holmes, the final collection, the first one would have come out in 1927, with the first one seemingly coming out in 21. So, that's just suddenly hit me. The war record came out while the war was still going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the last story because I'm actually looking at the release dates. And The Adventure of the Dying Detective, if you went by chronological order, was the last one written before his last bow. The War Service of Sherlock Holmes in 1913. With yeah, so most of these stories were written just before total war, World War One, absolute disaster.
The
The
world is
war's his
forever
last,
changed.
yeah, the the War Service of Sherlock Holmes was written just a year before the war ended, and then the next ones are between 1921 and 1927. So,
It's weird when
and I'm gonna have to check this.
stories about the
Yeah,
war come out while the war is still on, like Casablanca. I've not seen
yeah,
Casablanca.
yeah, and Arthur Conan Doyle himself passed away in 1930. So we're not going to hear about. There's no references to Sherlock Holmes fighting Nazis in the original source material.
No. Although I like to believe he would.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but we'd also like to believe that Sherlock Holmes wasn't possibly sexist and racist. But here we are.
Yeah.
At the end of Wisteria Lodge is a little hard, unfortunately,
Yeah.
and
So it says, interesting bit of trivia, the release of Casablanca was moved forward a couple of months to coincide with the actual liberation of Casablanca. Cool.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, I've got one aside connected to
Yeah, go on.
films coming out in war. The Laurence Olivier 1944. I want to say it's Henry V, the one where the St. Crispin's Day speech is given, and it's like England fighting in France to sort of reclaim what is rightfully theirs, sort of thing, was commissioned by Churchill to coincide with the release of D-Day, but it got delayed by 6 months, the film. So D-Day had to sort of rile up national morale and pride at the time by having a renowned actor at the time as a well-remembered king doing a Shakespeare play about liberating France from weak, effeminate leaders.
Yeah.
To that was commissioned to launch with D-Day and got delayed by 6 months, which I find amusing.
That is funny.
It's just like, goodness sake, I can understand them bringing a film forward for propaganda purposes, but to pushing it back to lessen the propaganda effect, what on earth is going on?
Right, we've gone half an hour over, and yeah, that's all we've got for you on Tome Raider Classics for Sherlock Holmes. I forgot to call it Tome Raider Classics. I am not on form today. Okay,
Yeah.
we will not be here next week.
Yeah.
Because we'll be at a convention. But the week after that, oh god, which one is it? Which Animorphs book is it? Number 4.
The Predator.
The Predator. Yeah.
Yeah.
In 2 weeks' time, we will be discussing Animorphs the Predator, which I read a while ago. I will read again between now and then.
Yeah.
And it's the first Marco POV book.
Yes, so that should be interesting.
Casablanca would be heavily edited or not released at all. That is strange to think. Yeah. But yeah, we will see you in 2 weeks. I don't know what the temperature's going to be like tomorrow, but we may be back tomorrow for Assassin Sunday. But if not, we'll see you in 2 weeks with Animorphs. I may or may not do streams in the week. I've got some temperamental technology at the moment. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, the technology doesn't seem to be reacting well to the heat at the moment. So,
yeah. So, thanks for listening, and we will see you when we see you. Good night, everybody.
Yeah. Good night.
Oh, Seb just says, does Chris Hansen have anything to do with this animal? No, nothing like that. Okay, good